Novels, Society and History. In this chapter, we will learn the rise of the novel comes to India, uses of the novel, women and the novel, the nation and its history, contribution of Premchand. The rise of the novel. Novel writing started from the 17th century. The roots of this were in England and France, where shopkeepers, clerks, gentlemanly classes started reading the novels. There were different categories of novels. Example, the epistolary novel, they used printed and personal letters. Richardson Pamela used the exchange of letters. The growing popularity of novels. Printed materials were cheaper. The stories given in the novels were about ordinary people. The focus was on the lives of the common people. Pleasure of reading in private. Used vernacular language. Serialization of the novels. The world of the novel. The industrial age came in Europe in the 19th century. With the industrialization, factories came up and the economy, but at the same time, many workers were without jobs and the unemployed poor started roaming in search of jobs. Novelists such as Charles Dickens wrote about the terrible effects of industrialization on the people during that time. Charles Dickens from 1812 to 1870. He was a great British novelist. He was deeply critical of the ill impacts of industrialization. His two novels, Hard Times and Oliver Twist, are well known all over the world. Community and society. With the coming up of machines, the old method of farming started disappearing. Rural communities broke up and moved to the cities where a new culture came into being. The British novelist Thomas Hardy wrote about rural farming communities in his novels. Many of Hardy's novels describe a way of life that was fast vanishing in the countryside. His novels created a sense of understanding of the rural world and the communities who lived within it. The popularity of novels among women. Novels took women away from their real conditions into an imaginary world. Novels proved to be an entertainment for older women. It allowed for a new conception of womanhood. Stories of love created a new image of women who could choose or refuse their partners and relationships. Novels began exploring the world of women, their emotions and identities, their experiences and problems. Jane Austen's portrayal of women. Jane Austen's novels gave us a glimpse of the world of women in quiet rural society in early 19th century Britain. They make the reader think about a society which encouraged women to look for good marriages and find wealthy husbands. The main character of Jane Austen's novel, Pride and Prejudice, are preoccupied with marriage and money. As she says, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Novels for the young. A new type of man was idealized as someone who was powerful, assertive, independent, and daring in the novels written for the young. Books like R.L. Stevens' Treasure Island or Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book were great hits. Historical adventure novels for boys written by G.A. Henrys were also widely popular during the height of the British Empire. Love stories, especially Ramona, written in 1854 by Helen Hunt Jackson, and a series entitled What Katie Did by Sarah Chauncey Woolsey, written for adolescent girls, became popular in this period. Colonialism and after. Novels contributed by making the readers feel they were part of a super community of fellow colonists. The hero of Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe is an adventurer and slave trader. He treats colored people not as human beings equal to him, but as inferior creatures. Crusoe's behavior was not seen as unacceptable or odd, for most writers of the time saw colonialism as natural. Colonized people were seen as primitive and barbaric, less than human, and colonial rule was considered necessary to civilize them and to make them fully happy. The novel comes to India. The modern form of novel developed in the 19th century in India, but one can trace its origin in the 7th century through Bana Bhatt's Kadambari and Panchatantra. Some of the earlier novels were in Bengali and Marathi. The novel in South India. Novels appeared in South Indian languages. O. Chandu Menon tried to translate English novels. He wrote Indulekha in Malayalam in 1889. Kandukuri Viresalingam translated Vikar of Wakefield. He wrote Telugu novel Rajashekar Kaditamu in 1878. The novel in Hindi. Many poets and writers were encouraged by Bhartendu Harishchand, the pioneer of modern Hindi literature, to translate novels from other languages. But the first proper novel was written by Srinivas Das in 1882, titled Pariksha Guru. The Hindi novels achieved excellence because of the writings of Premchand. Initially he wrote in Urdu, then shifted to Hindi, but he was a very influential writer in both languages. The novel Pariksha Guru. Pariksha Guru reflects the inner and the outer world of the newly emerging middle classes of colonial India. The novel tries to create a highly ideal society and emphasizes on moralizing the leaders. Contribution of Devki Nandan Khatri in his Hindi novels. He was the first author of mystery novels in India. His writing created a novel reading public in Hindi. His bestseller Chandrakanta, a romance with dazzling elements of make-believe fantasy, is believed to have contributed in popularizing the Hindi language. He also promoted the Nagari script among the educated classes of those times.
Novels in Bengal. The Bengali novels depicted the two worlds, the first one being the historical events and the other being the inner world of domestic life. The old merchant elite of Calcutta patronized public forms of entertainment such as Kabir Larai, the poetry contests, and dance performances.
The Oriya Novel. Oriya novels focused on social problems. Fakir Mohan Senapati wrote the novel called Cha Man Atha Guntha in 1902, meaning 6 acres and 32 decimals of land. It dealt with the question of land and its possession. It was a path-breaking novel that showed that rural issues could become the important part of urban preoccupation. Uses of the novel. Novels are found as a valuable source of information on native life and customs. It was also used to criticize the defects in the society. Remedies to remove the defects in the societies were also suggested in the novels. Novels helped in establishing relationship with the past. Nationalism also arose through the novels.
All the growth scenario came the problem of being modern. The readers generally admire the characters of the novel. The heroes and heroines of the novel lived in the modern world, which was quite different from the mythological characters of the earlier poetic literature of India. Characters like Indulekha and Madhavan showed readers how Indian and foreign lifestyles could be brought together in an ideal combination. Then, the pleasure of reading. The media introduced the pleasure of reading. In India, people started reading novels for pleasure and entertainment. Different type of print material and books became a source of entertainment among the middle class. The novels were read silently as well as aloud so that several people could hear and benefit from them. The detective and mystery novels in Tamil were very popular in the early 20th century. People loved reading at home, while traveling or even at the crowded places. It was like daydreaming.
Women and the novel. Women and children were very much fascinated by the novels, and which was taking them to an imaginary world from the real surroundings. Women also began writing novels, and it gained popularity because one could read a new conception of womanhood. Rokia Hussain wrote a satirical fantasy, Sultana's Dream, in English, which showed a topsy-turvy world in which women take the place of men.
Issue of caste in novels in India. The upper caste members wrote novels like Indirabai and Indulekha. They were written by the upper castes. Saraswati Vijayam. It was a novel written in 1892 by a lower caste writer, Potheri Kojambar, from North Kerala, mounting a strong blow on caste oppression. A new kind of novel emerged in Bengal from 1920 that depicted the lives of peasants and low castes. Advaita Malla Burman wrote Titash Ekti Nadiri Naam in 1956 and discussed about the community of the fisher folks, the Mallas, who lived off fishing in the river. Titash. Titash was the name of the river. Let's know about Bekom Muhammad Bashir. Bashir was one of the early Muslim novelists in Malayalam. His works were based on his own rich personal experiences. His novels were written in ordinary language of conversation, and his novels spoke about the details from the everyday life of the Muslim households. He also brought into Malayalam writing themes which were considered very unusual at that time. Okay?
The nation and its history. One could get to know about their past history, traditional Puranic stories through the novels. There were many historical novels which depict Indians as divided, dependent on the British, and the struggle for freedom. Anguriya Binamoy, written by Bhudev Mukhopadhyay, was the first historical novel written in Bengal. Many novels inspired the people in the freedom movement. Bankim's Anandmat, a novel about a secret Hindu military group that fights Muslims to establish a Hindu kingdom. Contribution of Premchand to Hindi novels. Munshi Premchand was the doyer of both Urdu and Hindi novels. He began writing in Urdu and then shifted to Hindi on the advice of Hazari Prasad Dwivedi. He drew on the traditional art of Kissa Goi, that is storytelling. His novel Seva Sadan, published in 1914, lifted the Hindu novel from the realm of fantasy, moralizing and simple entertainment to a serious reflection on the lives of ordinary people and social issues. He wrote on realistic issues of the day, that is, communalism, corruption, zamindari, debt, poverty, and colonialism. Godan, The Gift of Cow, published in 1936, is Prem Chand's best known work. It is an epic of the Indian peasantry. We will now discuss the novels from the West. Charles Dickens wrote Oliver Twist and Hard Times. Thomas Hardy was famous for his novel The Mayor of Casterbridge. Charlotte Bronte wrote Jane Eyre. The Jungle Book was written by Rudyard Kipling. Ramona was written by Helen Hunt Jackson. Germinal was written by Emily Zoya. Jane Austen wrote The Pride and Prejudice. R.L. Stevenson was famous for his novel Treasure Island. What Katie Did was written by Sarah Chauncey Woolsey, and Robinson Crusoe was written by Daniel Defoe. We will now discuss the novels from India. O. Chandu Menon wrote Indulekha. Godan was written by Prem Chand. Sarasitavijam was written by Potheri Kunjambu. Angriya Binimoy was written by Bhudev Mukhopadhyay. Durgesh Nandini was written by Bankim Chandra. Srinivas Das wrote Pariksha Guru. Devki Nandan Khatri wrote Chandrakanta. Yamuna Paryatan was written by Baba Padmanji. Muktmala was written by Lakshman Mureshwar Halbe, and Kadambari was written by